What's happening, everybody? Jeff Lightsey Jr. here with the Black Boss Channel, the Boss Sports Network, and the Victory Formation Sports Show. Here today to talk to you about the Brooklyn Nets and how bad they are doing the NBA right now. The Brooklyn Nets look like the best team in basketball. I mean, this team is literally playing out of its mind right now. And the question is Brooklyn the best team in the league? Like, is Brooklyn better than the Lakers? Is Brooklyn better than the Clippers? Is Brooklyn really a title contender? Because for a while, people kept telling me they don't play enough defense to actually win a championship. And I was on here saying that defense is overrated, that Brooklyn is legit, that Brooklyn can win the entire thing. And people were saying, no, man, no, hell no, Brooklyn can't win. But since Brooklyn has went on this West Coast trip that included a game against the Clippers, which is one of the best teams in the NBA, a game against the Lakers, which is one of the best teams in the NBA, they defeated both of them, right? Brooklyn is currently second in the East, and they're doing all of this without Kevin Durant. Like, they're doing all of this without their best player. They've went 5-0. James Harden seems to have adopted seamlessly. He can score whenever you need him to score. He can dish whenever you need him to dish. And Kyrie Irving is playing out of his mind, playing potentially his best season of his career. So let's dive into this win against the Clippers. So Brooklyn beat the Clippers 112-108. It was a controversial call at the end when they called an offensive foul. Shout out to James Harden for playing defense. You know, this thing that y'all say they don't play. James Harden actually played some defense at the end, forced an offensive foul by Kawhi Leonard, and they beat the Clippers last night. But look at the stat line from James Harden. 41 minutes. He had 37 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Kyrie Irving put in 40 minutes, had 28, 4, and 8, and Brooklyn was able to get the win over the Clippers. James Harden with 37 while being guarded by or Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. That's how dominant the man can be. James Harden has been one of the best facilitators in the NBA since he got to Brooklyn. Since he got to Brooklyn, he has been, if not one of the best facilitators, the best facilitators in the NBA since he got to Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving, like I said, is having a career year. He's shooting 50-40-90 while averaging 28 points per game. And Brooklyn's winning all of these games, all of them without Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has been out. First, it was the COVID protocol stuff, and now he's been out with a hamstring injury, and they still are finding ways to win. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. So even without Kevin Durant, this team looks like one of, if not the best team in the entire NBA. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Am I going crazy when I say they look like one of the best teams in the NBA? Saying yes, they can win the title even with defense. But see, I think defense is overrated. I think this Brooklyn team is looking really, really good, and James Harden is playing some of his best basketball ever. Ooh, this is a tough take by Knox. He says James Harden and Kyrie Irving is the best backcourt ever. James Harden, leave your thoughts in the chat. James Harden and Kyrie Irving, the best backcourt ever. I don't know if I can say that. I'll say they're one of the most talented backcourts ever. I would definitely say they're the one. It's hard to find a backcourt that is more talented than James Harden and Kyrie Irving. We're talking about two guys that can go out and get you 60 on any given night. They're definitely more talented than Klay and Steph, but Klay and Steph have championships behind the name. They're definitely more talented than any backcourt mate of Dwayne Wade or Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. Because even though all those guys have championships, that this backcourt is definitely better than them. Now, the only reason why people wouldn't say this, Knox is going out here on the limb, some people might call this a hot take because this backcourt doesn't have a championship. But if you look at it just talent-wise, off the top of my head, I can't find a more talented backcourt than James Harden and Kyrie Irving. I don't know one. Knox, you on to something right here. I can't think of a better backcourt than James Harden and Kyrie Irving in NBA history. Like, I can't think, like, I literally I'm really trying. I'm trying to think of all the history of all the champions, and Stephen Klay is the one that keeps coming up, but they're better than Stephen Klay. I mean, I'm going to just be real. This backcourt is better than Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. They don't shoot as well, like from three percentage-wise and historically, but as far as talent, as far as who am I picking, Steph and Klay or James and Kyrie? I'm taking James and Kyrie. I mean, that's a good one. Shout out to DeAndre for that, man. That was a really good one. I can't think of a backcourt that is better than James Harden and Kyrie Irving. Right now, they're the best team in the league, but we all know Harlan does in the playoffs. Nothing. See that? We not gonna sit here and just dismiss James Harden. Yes, we know he's had some playoff failures. Yes, that is true. And I want to dive into that. Yes, we know he's had some playoff failures. He's had some stinkers in the playoffs. One game, I think, against the Spurs or somebody, he had like the most turnovers ever in the history of a playoff game. The other game, Game 7 against the Warriors, when Chris Paul got hurt, James Harden in the Houston Rockets shot 0 for 27 from 3 to start the game, and they ended up losing that game in 7. But James Harden's never been on a team like this. Yeah, you can say he's had some stinkers in the playoffs, and he has. I'm not gonna defend that. But he's never been on a team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Two guys that are champions. Two guys that are champions. Two guys that seem to get better when the stakes matter more, right? Like James Harden's had his fair share of stinkers in the playoffs. But Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant actually get better when the game means more. So that helps you a whole lot. Like, it's a lot easier to be a good basketball player and a good basketball team when you have really good teammates, when you have really good players on the team alongside of you. So James Harden's not going in there as a one-man band or with an injured Chris Paul or with a Dwight Howard who don't know how to win. Like, he's going there with Kyrie and KD, like two guys that really know what they're doing come playoff time. Kyrie Irving maybe hit the single greatest shot in NBA Finals history. Kevin Durant is a two-time Finals MVP. Like, that's not by accident. You don't get those accolades. You do not get those accolades by yourself. But shout out to Mason for that. You see, Mr. Jaylen says, but we gotta say the regular season until the ring comes. Yeah, well, I think this is in reference to Kyrie and James Harden being the best backcourt we've ever seen. I mean, yeah, I'm the only reason why I don't want to like sit here and stamp it, right? Like mark it in stone is because they haven't won in the playoffs. But talent-wise, there isn't a backcourt. I mean, this is the Eastern Conference All-Star starting backcourt in real life, right? Like that James Harden and Kyrie Irving is like a starting backcourt. And we're going to talk about the All-Star game, by the way. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. The Eastern Conference or NBA All-Star backcourt. Like that's how good this team is. Like, you got 3 players in the All-Star game, 3 All-NBA players, 3 players that'll go down first ballot Hall of Famers. When you have all 3 of them on the same team, it's tough to beat. But yeah, Brooklyn, I just, as far as Brooklyn, back to my original point, Brooklyn is the best team in the league right now. Not just the best team in the Eastern Conference, because I don't think there's a team in the East that can beat Brooklyn. Boston can't beat Brooklyn. Philly cannot beat Brooklyn. Now, Philly's going to give them the toughest challenge because Joel Embiid is playing out of his mind. Joel Embiid is having a career year. Joel Embiid, literally, if it wasn't for LeBron and his heroics, Joel Embiid would be the league MVP. Like, Joel Embiid has been playing that well this year. But he can't do it by himself. Not with this 3-head juggernaut. This team, I don't think you guys have realized that the Brooklyn Nets haven't even played 10 games together. They haven't even played 10 games where all 3 of their stars were healthy. They played like 7 or 8 games where James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant were all on the court. Just like 7 or 8. They haven't even played 10 games together. Once this team actually gets a chance to play together, they're already starting to figure it out. Like, they're literally already starting to figure it out. They've gone 5-0, including wins over the Clippers and the Lakers. I get it, it's regular season, but it matters. So they've already starting to figure it out. Kevin Durant's going to be a seamless transition back into the lineup when he gets there. And when they play more than 10 games, when they actually get some games under their belt, oh my God, like, they're going to be scary. They are going to be scary. Even teams that you say are defensive stoppers, right? The Clippers are a pretty good defensive team, right? That's what people tell me. They got Paul George. They got Patrick Beverly. They got Kawhi Leonard. You know, these guys, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, are 2 of the best two-way players in the league. And James Harden still goes out there and drops 37. Kyrie Irving still drops 28. Like, it's because there's no defense for the perfect offense. There's no defense for the perfect offensive player. Like, there's only so much that you can do. And that's what the Clippers provide. They provide 3 perfect offensive players. 3 players that can go out there with your best defender, doesn't matter who he is, and get a bucket. Now, they can't stop anybody. They can't stop a nosebleed. I get it. Paul George had 34. Kawhi Leonard had 29. Very efficient. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, they have more firepower than you. This includes the Lakers. This includes the Clippers. This includes everybody in the Eastern Conference. They just simply have more firepower. And that's not a knock to the other teams. That's just because they can't beat them. That's just the truth. And then the fact that they might get Dinwiddie, shout out to James Earl Moans, they might get Spencer Dinwiddie back before the start of the playoffs. Now I don't expect that, but if they do, it's just that much better. It's just that much better. So moving on. Brooklyn, I think right now is playing like the best team in the NBA. Not just the best team in the conference, not just the best team in the East, one of the best teams in the NBA. And I'm going to stand on that because I think Brooklyn is that good, man. I've been saying it since the acquisition of James Harden, and people were saying you got to play defense and all of this, and man, defense overrated. When you have three guys that talented, that good, they're going to figure it out. Like, they're just too talented not to figure it out. Shout out to Sean. It says Lakers and Nets are resting their superstars, and no one can convince me otherwise. I don't think AD or KD is injured. I think AD's injured because AD has a history of injuries. I think they're playing it ultra conservative with Anthony Davis simply because he does have a history of injuries, and the Lakers and LeBron James can win games, regular season games, without Anthony Davis. They aren't looking too good right now. I think in the last 4 they're 1-3, but they can win most of their regular season games without Anthony Davis. They need Anthony Davis if they want any shot of beating this Brooklyn team. They need Anthony Davis if they want any shot of beating the Clippers. They need Anthony Davis if they want any shot of any type of playoff success. That's why they're resting Anthony Davis. Now, Kevin Durant, he's coming off an Achilles injury. So Kevin Durant, he might not be as hurt as they say, but I would play it ultra conservative with him too. If Brooklyn wants a chance, Brooklyn's beating a lot of these good teams. And with James Harden and Kyrie Irving, which we kind of established as maybe the best, at least the most talented backcourt in NBA history, with those two guys, you can win a lot of games. You can beat a lot of teams in the East. You ain't winning a title without Kevin Durant. Brooklyn's not winning the title without Kevin Durant. So you play that conservative because you need KD in the playoffs to be as healthy as possible so you can go out there and get some W's. So I don't know if like they're like super hurt. I think AD is hurt. I'm not gonna lie. I think Anthony Davis is actually really hurt. And I think they're playing, like I said, very conservatively because you need him if you want any chance of winning an NBA title. That's how the Lakers are feeling. You need Anthony Davis healthy. That's the only reason why. That's the only chance you have. Because without Anthony Davis, yeah, you can win some regular season games. You might win a playoff series or two. You're not making it to the finals, and you're dang sure not beating Brooklyn without Anthony Davis. So you have to play playing ultra conservative. Now, Kevin Durant was out due to COVID protocol, but now they're saying he has like a hamstring injury, so he should be back at some point soon. But like I said, they're going to slow play it because he is their best player, and he's coming off an Achilles injury, so they're gonna be ultra conservative with Kevin Durant. So also last week, that I'll talk about, guys, they announced the NBA All-Star starters. If you don't know, I have like a big bunch of chicken scratch on here. They announced the NBA All-Star starters. And on the Eastern Conference, they have Kevin out of Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, Kyrie. Phillies get Joel Embiid. Milwaukee Bucks has the Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Bradley Beal rounds out the top 5 starters of those 5 starters for the Eastern Conference. On the West, you got LeBron, Luka, Steph Curry, Jokic, and Kawhi Leonard. So, in the All-Star, so leave your comments down below. Did anybody get snubbed for the All-Star as far as starters go? Who were the snubs for the NBA All-Star starters? I'm going to read them once again. On the Eastern Conference, you got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Bradley Beal. On the Western Conference, you have LeBron, Luka, Steph, Jokic, and Kawhi Leonard. So obviously, the number one snub that comes to everybody's mind, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, is Damien Lillard. Dame Lillard is playing out of his mind this year. He's having a career year. I think he's averaging like 28 points a game. He's played most of the games without CJ McCullough. He's got Portland as a top 5 seed in the Western Conference. Let me confirm that. Top 5, Portland. So Portland in the standings. Yeah, they're 5th seed in the Western Conference. Even playing, I think they played like 10, 15 games without CJ McCullough. Oh, we got some good comments. We got Damien Lillard. We got LaMelo Ball. Someone thinks LaMelo Ball should be. We got Lillard. Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is a good one, and I'm going to talk about Zach LaVine later. And so Damien was the snub out west. So yeah, so we got some good names out there. So Damian Lillard was definitely a snub. We're not even gonna fake the funk and act like Dame Dollar wasn't someone who should have been an all-star starter. But we got to remember, and this is how the players actually picked Damian Lillard to be a starter over Luka Doncic. And Luka's the one who got the start over Dame because Steph obviously deserves it. Steph's playing out of his mind. Steph's got the Warriors in the playoffs while everybody simply is injured. But I want to talk about the format of the All-Star game. So we know that, yes, Dame got snubbed as far as a starter, but he's the only one that I'd say actually got snubbed as a starter. I think everybody else that starters deserves it. I think I'm all right, here. I'm going to just go ahead and put it out there. Because I've said this before, and I said it on wax before. I'm going to say it again. I think Luka Doncic is overrated. He is very popular, super popular, international guy, makes a lot of flashy plays, a really good player. He is overrated, guys. Luka Doncic isn't the player that everybody thinks he is. I mean, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hate on a young man. But he is overrated. His shooting percentage is low. He scores a lot of points. I know I talk about how defense is overrated. He scores a lot of points, but does he really make his team better? Like, there's players that score a lot of points, but they don't make, like the Mavericks were supposed to take the next step up. They pushed the Clippers to 6 games in the playoffs last year. They looked like a team of the future, right? Porzingis, Luka, the Mavericks. Luka's going to take that next step, going to be a better shooter. And then they're going to say, and then like they're supposed to be where Portland's at. Right? If Luka's so much better than Dame, why is it that they aren't the 5th seed in the West? Luka in the Dallas Mavericks. I'm gonna make sure I'm not lying on them because I'm gonna make sure I tell you exactly. The Dallas Mavericks are 10th in the West. They are 13 and 15. One of the worst teams in basketball. Dame and the Portland Trailblazers are 18 and 11. Like what are we doing here? Luka's better than Dame, but Dame's got his team as 5th in the West without CJ McCullough, without Nurkic. Nurkic just missed, I think CJ has missed 15 games. Nurkic has missed 16 games. So the second and third best player on Portland hasn't played, and Dame doesn't be a starter. Porzingis has missed a lot of games for Dallas, but Dallas essentially brought their whole team back, and they're 10th in the West, and they don't have as good of a record as Damian Lillard and in the Portland Trail Blazers. You can't tell me Luka's better than Dame Lillard. Like I refuse to believe that because Dame, although his stats might not be like Luka's as far as the triple doubles, we've established. Can we establish that triple doubles are now overrated? That they're now inflated? That they're now not the same as they once were? They're not as prestigious as they used to be. Triple doubles don't mean ultimate team success anymore. So Damian Lillard and Luka Doncic essentially play the same position, and Dame's team is 7 games over 500, 5th in the West. Luka's team is 10th in the West, and they're a lottery team right now. They play the same position, and they both have had their best guys out. And he needs help. He needs help in Dallas. Yeah, they need help in Portland too, and they're still somehow 5th in the West. Dallas was a team that was in the playoffs last year that pushed the Clippers to 6 games, and a team that people thought were going to be up and coming. But it looks like Seth Curry meant a lot more to Dallas last year than people took. I mean, people took Seth Curry for granted, it sounds like. Because Seth Curry's lighting it up over in Philly, and it looks like they took him for granted. So the fan voting for the All-Star game, yes, it does. The fan voting, and that is exactly why Dame isn't an All-Star starter, because the fans didn't vote him to be a starter. So I am disappointed about that, but it is what it is. But moving on. So besides just Damian Lillard, besides him getting snubbed or whatever, I am here to talk about, because I spoke my piece on Luka Doncic being overrated. I mean, that is what it is. I'm gonna stand by that until he proves otherwise. But I want to talk about the actual All-Star selection category. So you know how the captains are LeBron James and Kevin Durant. And you know how the captains actually pick the teams that they want, the teams that they're going to put together. The captains pick, so we know LeBron James and Kevin Durant are going to be picking their teams. And Kevin Durant if he plays, he's got to play first because it won't matter if he doesn't play because we know he's injured right now. But if Kevin Durant plays, we know that he is going to pick a team that is so competitive. And he's going to get James Harden. He's going to get Kyrie Irving. And he's going to pick a team that wants to destroy LeBron's team. It's not going to be buddy-buddy. It's not going to be Giannis picking all the underdogs, all the guys that probably should or should not make the All-Star game that's like borderline, right? Like Giannis picked all the foreign guys and all the like guys that, could have made it, couldn't have made it. No. Kevin Durant is going to pick, if Kawhi Leonard is available, he's going to get Kawhi. If we know he's going to get James Harden and Kyrie Irving. We know he's going to want Giannis. Like he is going to pick every single player he thinks can help him beat LeBron James. And that is going to be fun to watch. Because one thing Kevin Durant hates, we all know, and that's coming in second, and especially coming in second to LBJ. We know that. Like that's a known fact. That's not something I have to speculate. That's not something I have to think about. That's not something I even have to ask him. It's something I know. It's well documented how much Kevin Durant hates to lose to LeBron. And so I don't expect him to lose to LeBron. But one thing I am going to dive into, and let's get into it. So we got the 5 starters. There's 12 players named to the All-Star teams, right? 12 on the East, 12 players named from the West. And obviously they mix them up because it's the captain pick. But I here have 7 players from both the Eastern and Western conferences to tell you who should be the All-Star reserves. I'm here to name them, and you can't disagree because these are the 7 best players or the 7 most deserving players from each conference that should be in the All-Star game. So I'm going to start with the West. And I'm actually, for the Western Conference, I'm going to be real. I'm going to name 8 players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to actually name 8 players because Anthony Davis is an All-Star. He just won't play. So I have a replacement for AD. So I'm going to tell you at the end. So AD, so these are the 8 players from the Western Conference that'll be the All-Star reserve. AD, but we know AD won't play. So we got AD, and I'm going to tell you his replacement at the end. So Anthony Davis is an All-Star reserve. Paul George is an All-Star reserve. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, they're the number 1 team in the Western Conference. They're the 2 All-Star reserves. Dame, so obviously Damien Lillard, he got snubbed. And these are 2 guys that some people might not agree with me, but hey, they deserve to be in there. And that's Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Chris Paul and Devin Booker. So I have Anthony Davis. So the original 7 players was Anthony Davis, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, Chris Paul. Those are the 7 All-Star reserves from the Western Conference. Tell me if I'm going crazy. Those are the 7 reserves from the Western Conference. Please leave your comments in the chat. Are those 7 good players that you would agree with? And these are 7 players that deserve to be in the All-Star game. I'm name them off from the Western Conference. Anthony Davis, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, Chris Paul. Those 7 deserve to be in the All-Star game. Now, since Anthony Davis will not be playing because he is injured, he's going to be out the next month, the replacement for Anthony Davis, this might be controversial, but hey, this is the guy most deserving. This is the guy the fans want to see. This is the guy that needs to be in there, Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson needs to be in the All-Star game. He's having a great year, dominating. He's dominating. Every time he gets the ball, there's nobody that can guard Zion Williamson in the entire association. There's not a guy in the NBA that can guard Zion Williamson in the entire association. There's nobody. I'm sorry. The man is pure dominance. So he's in there and replacing Anthony Davis. Paul George, he's on the Clippers. The Clippers are doing well. Paul George is having another great year. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. The reason why they're in there, they're the number 1 team in basketball, record-wise. They have the number 1 record in the entire NBA. Basketball-wise, they have the best record. I don't think they're the best team. I don't think they're better than the Lakers. I don't think they're better than the Clippers. I don't think they're better than Brooklyn. But right now, they're playing the best and have the best record. So that's why they have to have – you can't have one – the best team in basketball has got to have at least 2 All-Stars. Donovan Mitchell's having a career year. Rudy Gobert will be in a running for Defensive Player of the Year again. So he needs to be in there. Damian Lillard, self-explanatory why he needs to be there. And the revival of the Phoenix Suns simply relies on Chris Paul. Devin Booker's been a great kid. He's been a good player. He's been a perennial all-star his entire career. But the reason why Phoenix is where they are today in the NBA as far as the standings go. Where's Phoenix in the standings? They've won a bunch of games. They've won a whole bunch of games. Phoenix is number 4 in the Western Conference, and that is because of Chris Paul. Phoenix currently has a record of 19-10, and I think they've won like 6 of their last 7. They have that record, and they're that good because of CP3. It's all because of CP3. Shout out to Charles Craycroft. It's all because of CP3. And so because of CP3, Devin Booker's got the stats to be in the All-Star game. So Devin Booker gets in. And then CP3 gets in because he is the reason why they're 4th in the West right now. He is the reason why they're playing such good basketball. He is the reason why DeAndre Ayton doesn't look like a bust anymore. So I've got Anthony Davis. He will be replaced by Zion Williamson, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, and CP3. Those are my Western Conference All-Star reserves. Leave your thoughts in the chat, whether that's a good list of Western reserves or who did I snub? Did I snub anybody? Eastern Conference, I think, is a little more difficult to choose. I think the Western Conference, that was pretty easy for me. I came up with that list pretty fast, like boom, boom, Zion replace AD, boom, boom, boom. So that's pretty easy. The Eastern Conference is a little more difficult because there's some stipulations in there with some guys. There's some guys who may or may not should make it. So here's my Eastern Conference reserves. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I only got 7 because all these guys are presumably healthy. I only picked 7. So James Harden's a reserve. That's a no-brainer. Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics. I think he's a reserve on the Eastern Conference. Hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Jaylen Brown. Julius Randle, career year, and the Knicks are playing some of the best basketball they played in a decade. So Julius Randle is in there. James Harden. Jaylen Brown's averaging 27 a game. He's in there. Julius Randle's averaging like 23, 11, and shooting 40% from 3. He's in there. Zach LaVine averaging 28 a game. The Chicago Bulls are horrible. The Chicago Bulls, I repeat, the Chicago Bulls are horrible. Like a terrible team. But Zach LaVine is hooping. He deserves to be an all-star. Chris Middleton. I know. We give Milwaukee so much crap because they are such a regular season team. And this year, they're not even good in the regular season. They ain't that good. I mean, they're still like top 3 in the East, but they're not like the Milwaukee of the past in the regular season. But Chris Middleton is still averaging 20 on 50, 40, 90. He's still averaging, I think, 5 assists and 5 rebounds. So Chris Middleton is an all-star. Deontay Sabonis from the Indiana Pacers. Shout out to my cousin Sharon. The Pacers, Sabonis is an all-star. He was an all-star last year. He's got better numbers this year. The Pacers are a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. Sabonis is an all-star. And then Tobias Harris is my last and final pick for the all-star game. Philly's number 1 in the East. Tobias Harris deserves to be an all-star over Ben Simmons. We talk about Chris Paul. Shout out to Sean. CP3 has always elevated his team. Top 3 to 5 conference status, no matter. I mean, that's absolutely true. He had what's the team? He had the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs when last year I think they gave him a 0.01% chance to make the playoffs. He had the Thunder in the playoffs. So Sean, you're absolutely right about that. But yes, these are my Eastern Conference All-Stars. I'm gonna go the reserves. I'm gonna go through it one more time. James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, Zach LaVine, Chris Middleton, Deontay Sabonis from the Pacers, because I'm not going to say where he's at because a lot of people don't know. Sabonis from the Pacers, and Tobias Harris. No Jimmy Butler, no Ben Simmons. Those are the guys. Harden, Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, Zach LaVine, Chris Middleton, Deontay Sabonis, and Tobias Harris. Those are my 7 all-star reserves from the Eastern Conference. Leave in the chat if you think I am wrong, and I'm going to go through why all 7 of those get the bid over guys like Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler and some of those guys. So James Harden, I think, is self-explanatory. The Nets, I just sat here for 20 minutes and told you they're the best team in basketball, at least as of right now, with Anthony Davis being hurt and they beat the Clippers head-to-head. So that right there. Jaylen Brown, averaging 27 a game. He's having a career year. He's having a better season than Jason Tatum. Look it up. Watch the games. Eye test and through the stats, he's having a better season than Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's been out because of COVID. Jason Tatum just hasn't looked the same. I don't know if it's because of COVID or whatever, but he hasn't looked as good as he should have this year, where Jaylen Brown has elevated his game. If Jason Tatum was playing the way he should, if Jason Tatum was playing the way he should, Boston would have a better record. But Jaylen Brown is leading the team right now. Julius Randle, I just said it, 23 a game, 11 rebounds, shooting 40% from three while knocking down 2 to 3 threes a game. Julius Randle's having a career. In year 7, he's the best he's ever played. In year 7, he's looking as good as ever. In year 7, he has the Knicks actually playing competitive basketball. He's the best team on the Knicks. And the Knicks have looked, this is the best team they've had in a decade. So, of course, the New York guy is going to get in. Zach LaVine, 28 a game. The team is horrible, but he's had several games where he's hit 8, 9, 10 threes in one game. The man is hooping out of his mind. Chris Middleton, I said it, 25-5, 50, 40, 90 on a team that's top 3 in the East. On a team that isn't having the regular season that they normally have, but they're still top 3 in the Eastern Conference. Chris Middleton gets in. Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis averaging 21 and 11 on a Pacers team that's in the top half of the Eastern Conference. If I'm going to reward a guy like Zach LaVine, whose team is going to be a top 3 pick, I got to reward the teams that are going to make the playoffs. And since the Pacers are going to make the playoffs, and Sabonis was an all-star last year, he's having better stats this year, Sabonis is an all-star. And in Tobias Harris, once again, we have to reward the best teams. Philly is the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference record-wise. Philly has the best record in the Eastern Conference. Tobias Harris has been the second best player on that team this year. Joel Embiid is in MVP conversation, but Tobias Harris is one of the main reasons why Philly has the best record in the East. So, yes, Tobias Harris is an all-star. I'm sorry, Trae Young missed it. CJ, Trae Young, I want to put him in, but his team's not winning. I got to reward winning at some point, and his stats are down. No Jason Tatum, no Tatum, no Brogdon, no Trae Young. No, because I feel like these guys are more deserving. Chris Middleton's team is better than Jason Tatum's team, so he gets in over him. Jaylen Brown is having a better year than Jason Tatum, which is his teammate, so he gets in over him. I was going to pick one player off the Pacers, and Malcolm Brogdon has missed some games. He's missed a bunch of games. So that's why Jimmy Butler didn't get in. Jimmy Butler missed a bunch of games, not to his own, but because of COVID. And because of all the games he missed, I have to put the guys who have played over Jimmy Butler. I have to put Sabonis in over Brogdon because he's played more games and he's having a better season. And then Trae Young is a great player. Trae Young is one of my favorite players in the league, and it hurt me not to put Trae Young in his game. But his team is not winning. His team is not winning, and these guys are having a better year. As far as like the guards, like if I'm considering Harden, Jaylen Brown, and Zach LaVine guards, those guards deserve it to be in over Trae Young. That's just how I look at it. So these are my all-star reserves. I'm going to go back over to the Western Conference. In the West, I have Anthony Davis, who will be replaced by Zion because the fans want to see Zion. Zion's he's deserving. He's having a great year. The team is starting to get it together as far as winning-wise, and the fans want to see him. And this game is about fans, especially if the fans are going to be in the building. We got something to watch. And so Zion is definitely something to watch. So Zion. Paul George, self-explanatory, they're one of the best teams in the league, having another good year. Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, who are leading the number 1 team in basketball, not just in the Western Conference, but in basketball. The Jazz have the best record in basketball. Damian Lillard, who was the all-star, who's the starter snub, is having a better year than Luka, whose team's winning more than Luka, who should have been in there over Luka, but hey, it is what it is. Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Chris Paul has come and changed the whole entire program that is in Phoenix. Now, let me run it back with Chris Paul one more time. Because here's the thing about CP3. We marvel at LeBron James because LeBron has been doing it for 18 years. And LeBron is just like Superman, right? Like he's 6'8", 260 or whatever, and can do these amazing things and will probably win MVP this year in year 18. And we always talk about his longevity and how long he's played and how great he is and how good he makes your team instantly as soon as he shows up. Well, the same can be said about Chris Paul. Not to the level of LeBron James, obviously. Chris Paul has 0 championships, has never been to the finals. LeBron James has been in the finals 10 times and has 4 championships. But Chris Paul and the impact that he makes on an organization and franchise cannot be overlooked. Think about the teams that he has played for. New Orleans. He was drafted by New Orleans. And he had New Orleans as one of the best teams in the Western Conference every single year he was there. They were a perennial playoff team. And they were really, really good every single year he was in New Orleans. So good that the Lakers were trying to trade for him after winning a championship. They were going to give up their future or the players on their current roster to get Chris Paul because he was that good. A 6-foot point guard who's not overly fast, who's not lightning quick, but has a tightest handle, one of the tightest handles in the history of the NBA, and hits mid-range shots like no other, and can go out there and get you 40 or can drop 30 assists. He's that good at 6 foot, 6 foot even. So he was so good in New Orleans that the Lakers, even after winning championships, were trying to trade Lamar Odom, Paul Gasol, everybody. They were going to trade everybody to pair Chris Paul with Kobe Bryant. And obviously, we all know the league owned the league owned the New Orleans at the time, and they vetoed the trade and actually allowed him to go to the other LA team, the Clippers. And so what does he do when he gets the Clippers? He actually changes that whole entire franchise. That franchise, which is the bottom basement of the NBA, one of the worst run teams in the NBA, one of the laughing stocks of the NBA. They were the Cleveland Browns of the NBA, like maybe worse, because Cleveland actually had some playoff success at some point. Clippers have never had any kind of success. Look at the history of the Los Angeles Clippers before Chris Paul showed up. They had zero success. They weren't even good at drafting players. They would have the number one pick and pick the wrong player every time. CP3 shows up. He changes the trajectory of the franchise. The franchise starts going, they become Lob City, and they start going, winning a bunch of games and going to the playoffs every year. And they were, honestly, to a lot of people, they were next in line to win the championship. And that's when Golden State hired Steve Kerr and kind of screwed everything up. But regardless, he goes there and changed the entire trajectory of the league. Shout out to my cousin Ian in the building. So, Ian is actually throwing shots at Chris Paul. I'm going to get to Ian for a second, but let me go down my history of Chris Paul first. So, he gets the Clippers. He changes everything. They have a falling out or whatever. They ship him off. They get rid of him. They send him over to Houston. What does he do with Houston? Houston and James Harden has the most success they've ever had in the Harden era. They go to the Western Conference Finals, and they are literally a Chris Paul hamstring away. I believe wholeheartedly to this day, if Chris Paul has a bunch of ifs, it'll, woulda, shouldas, ifs and whatnot, but I believe wholeheartedly if Chris Paul never injures his hamstring, the Houston Rockets go on to not only go to the NBA Finals and defeat and bust up the Golden State Warriors dynasty before they should have, but they go on to win the championship. I definitely think they would have won the championship if Chris Paul never gets hurt. But he got hurt, and obviously we know they took him to a Game 7, but it was without Chris Paul, and they went on to lose, of course. But the Houston Rockets established the most success they had ever had in the James Harden era and ever would and will have, because obviously James Harden's not there anymore. But the most wins and the most success they ever had was when Chris Paul was there. So James Harden gets mad at Chris Paul, ships him off because they ship him off to OKC to essentially to rot, right? Like they send him to OKC, to die because OKC was a rebuilding team. It was a team that had no business of doing anything last year. So what does CP3 do when he gets there? He leads them to the playoffs, guys. He leads a team full of babies, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dortz and all these guys. He leads them, Steven Adams, who's one-dimensional, leads them to the playoffs. As a 5 seed, not like as an 8 seed. He goes as a 5 seed to the playoffs with a team full of babies, a team full of Lou Dortz and Steven Adams and teammate. There really shouldn't have been no good. That's the impact of Chris Paul. And then you add him to a Phoenix team that's been underachieving, that's full of young talent like Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, I forgot the little shooter's name, Johnson, but a bunch of young talent. You add a Jay Crowder, you add a Chris Paul, and now they're a top 4 team in the Western Conference. They go from missing the playoffs every year for the last however many years to a top 4 seed, and the only drastic changes they made was they brought in Chris Paul. So that's how great Chris Paul is. So Ian says CP3 is ball dominant, and the numbers are misleading. It never works in the playoffs. So let me address this. We have to remember, we can't just overlook the fact that I just said all of that stuff about Chris Paul, and it's so impressive because he is small, right? Chris Paul is 6 foot even, or that's what he's listed as. He might be smaller than that. He's in year 16. Year 16, guys. He's the same age as LeBron James. As much praise and heat and love that we give LeBron James, he is 6'8", he's 260 pounds, and he's a freak of nature. Now, he takes care of his body. Obviously he's got all this gifted stuff, but he spends $1 million a year on his body, so he makes sure that he's in peak condition and peak shape every year. But he is abnormal, right? Like, he is something that God created that only God can explain, right? Like, that's not what Chris Paul is working with. Chris Paul is working with a 6 foot, 180, maybe 200-pound body in year 16, the same age as LeBron James. LeBron James and Chris Paul was in the same McDonald's All-American game. Chris Paul just went to college. LeBron came right out of high school. The same age as LeBron James and still making severe impacts. Now, as far as in the playoffs, it does work. He's just never been on a great team. His best team was with Houston. His best team with the best chance of success in the playoffs was in Houston, and they were going to beat the Warriors, Ian. I think they were going to beat the Warriors, but CP3 got hurt. Now, I will say, you can say, well, CP3 gets hurt a lot. He does. He does get hurt a lot. I can't defend that because he does get hurt a lot, but the last few years, he has been healthy, and he's been healthy for the Phoenix Suns this year, and that is why they're so good. That is why they're a top 4 team in the West. That's why they're having the most success they've had in the last decade. So that's why I think Chris Paul deserves all the credit, because we're talking about a guy who has literally dominated since he got to the league. Now we got some all-star picks. Let me see. Where'd it go? So the all-star reserves, we got Elevate says his all-star reserves are Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Paul George, Damien Lillard, Christian Wood, and De'Aaron Fox. Okay, Christian Wood's having a really good year, but essentially you're leaving out CP3 and Devin Booker, and those are the two guys. Those are the big changes, because you have De'Aaron Fox and Christian Wood, where I had Devin Booker and Chris Paul. And I think Devin Booker and Chris Paul deserves the edge over Christian Wood and De'Aaron Fox because their team is winning. Their team's a top 4 seed in the playoffs. We can't snub a team that's top 4 in the Western Conference in the playoffs and not give them any all-stars. Like not only are you not giving them both, you're not giving them any. Come on, Elevate. We gotta show them some love. You need to trot out Chris Paul, another good player in 3 corps, and he'll take you to the playoffs. Easily, Sean. He's gonna take you to the playoffs for sure. For sure, because he's that good. He's been that effective. He's been that great. Ineffective, it's that because his teams to overachieve, his teams often lose in the playoffs because many of this is Sean on Chris Paul. So it's not that he isn't effective. It is that causes his teams to overachieve. That's exactly right. Teams like Phoenix have no business being a top 4 team, and they have a lot of talent, but all these guys are babies. Thunder, they had no business being in the playoffs last year. So Sean's absolutely correct. Sean's absolutely correct. You talking about a 6-foot man who in a league full of giants, right? Chris Paul's a 6-foot man in a league full of giants dominating. He's that good. How are you able to be the point guard in a league full of giants, in a league that has shifted away, honestly, away from the guards and more to the wings? So if you're not 6'5" and bigger, it's hard to be dominant in the NBA. It always has been because it's a league full of giants. But if you're not a 6'5" or taller wing, think about the best players in the league, or the guys that we consider the best players. It's LeBron. It's the Kawhis. It's the Joel Embiids. You know what I mean? It's only a rare amount of guys like the Steph Currys and the Chris Pauls that are actually in contention, and the Dame Lillards, they're in contention as some of the best players in the league. The Luka Doncic people love so much. He's 6'6", right? Like, we look at these starters. All these guys are huge. Kyrie Irving is 6'3". Chris Paul is 6 foot even. They list him at 6 foot. So he's probably shorter than that in real life. And he's still able to dominate. Now, Elevates Eastern Conference reserves is Trae Young, Zach LaVine, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. This is bad. This Eastern Conference reserves is bad, man. You didn't have no James Harden. You didn't have no Julius Randle. His team's in the playoffs right now. You don't have Chris Middleton. His team's a top 3 team in the playoffs right now. You don't have no Zach LaVine. You do have Zach LaVine, but nah, man. Elevate. We gotta rearrange your list, buddy, because that list ain't too good. I'm gonna just be real with you. Let's see. I have Hero says they used Harden in Houston from financial gains. Houston, after Chris Paul left, really wasn't trying to win. Yeah, because they went out and got Russell Westbrook. And that we all know that wasn't a move to go out and try to win. So I'm with you. I wouldn't say they weren't trying to win. I definitely think they were trying to win. They just, Harden as the nucleus, as your team, it's tough to build around. Harden as the sole proprietor and as the number one go-to guy, it's hard to build around. Now, Harden with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, that's perfect. You can win a championship with that because James Harden, I will say this about James Harden. James Harden is not, he doesn't have a problem with being mainly a facilitator. He knows he can get his buckets whenever, but even when he was in OKC, he was the best point guard on OKC, even with Russell Westbrook and even with him coming off the bench. He was the best point guard on the team. Right? James Harden was. And then he goes to Brooklyn and people are like, well, that James Harden is different. He isn't the James Harden from OKC. He's going to want to shoot because that's what he's done in Houston. No, James Harden is going to adapt. He's going to adapt to what's best for the team. And so what he become when he gets to Brooklyn? He becomes the main facilitator again. He becomes the best point guard on the team. He allows Kyrie Irving to play off ball, which he is best at. Kyrie Irving is best when he's playing off ball. And Kevin Durant is so smooth and can adjust and adapt to anything. We saw that since the Golden State days. It makes it's a seamless transition. It's easy. It's flow. James Harden does need the ball, but Kyrie Irving is best when he's off ball, and Kevin Durant's going to get a bucket no matter what. So that's just how that team is constructed. That's why Brooklyn is winning a whole bunch of games. CB3 is the best leader in basketball outside of Braun, which is why he elevates weaker teams like the Thunder, Suns, New Orleans. Yes, that's absolutely right. And what's so crazy, because leadership can only take you so far, right? Like leadership gets you a certain position, but you have to be skillful, talented, and just really cold on the court. And for Chris Paul to be that leader, he's annoying. He gets under a lot of people's skin, but he is that leader. And the fact that he's that tough at 6 foot, at 36. Chris Paul is also is 36 years old and still going out there hooping. He's a 10-time All-Star. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot, and he'll be an 11-time All-Star because there's no way Chris Paul should not make the All-Star game this year. You think Vucevic gets in? No, I do not. My Eastern Conference reserves, once again, I'm going to run it off. James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, Zach LaVine, Chris Middleton, Domantas Sabonis, and Tobias Harris. Those are my 7 guys from the Eastern Conference. I do not think Vucevic would get in. I do not think Malcolm Brogdon would get in. Shout out to Elevate. He had to get James Harden in there because he messed up. But those are my reserves from the Eastern Conference. My reserves from the Western Conference, one more time, is Anthony Davis, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Booker, and Chris Paul. And then to replace Anthony Davis, I got Zion because the fans want to see Zion Williamson. So, guys, I have some things to do. Thank you guys for rocking with me. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsey Jr. at the Black Boss Channel. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe on your way out, and leave a comment because we do this every weekday in the morning. It's the Victory Formation Sports Show. So tune in every morning, roughly about 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Eastern, and we'll get it going. Leave your comments down below on what you want to talk about next time, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.